He's Paul Feinbaum, Paul Feinbaum Show on ESPN Radio, and he joins us on the program. Was it a good weekend for college football, Paul?
If all you folks in Alabama turn your radio down for a second, it was a spectacular weekend. Dan, I saw some guy did a compilation. I don't know how he did it, but he said this was one of the 8 or 9 most exciting days in the history of college football. And to think about when that game that you just referenced ended in Dallas at 3:30, it was one of the most spectacular comebacks ever for Oklahoma. To think that that wouldn't be the best game in the state of Texas that day is truly remarkable. Speaking of College Station, October 8th was a day that all Aggie fans circled. And I do this. We do this traveling SEC show like College Game Day. And I think when we picked on Sunday, it was like the 5th best game of the weekend in the SEC because nobody thought A&M was going to win. It wasn't because they don't have a good program. They just got through losing to Arkansas and Mississippi State. I mean, they were done.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And then all of a sudden, we have so many great stories now in college football, but I wonder if they're real stories. Is Iowa a top 5 team in your opinion? Is Cincinnati a top 5 team? If the season ended today, do you really think the committee is going to have Iowa and Cincinnati in the Final Four?
No, I was talking to somebody earlier, and they said unequivocally Cincinnati has to be in the college football playoff. I'm like, that's great. It's Columbus Day, and that does not mean anything because there are so many other things that could happen. And I'm not going to bore you with the playoff predictor, but all Alabama has to do, Dan, is win out. And I know for most schools that sounds like a big hill to climb. For Alabama, it's not. They win the rest of the regular season games and beat Georgia. They're in. That also means Georgia would be in, assuming they don't lose to some ridiculous in a ridiculous upset. So then you only have 2 spots left. So Cincinnati better have a bulldozer to knock that door down if that's going to be the case.
What happened to Clemson?
I think it's been coming for a while. They lost one of their coordinators to USF a couple of years ago, and I think it affected their play calling a little bit. I think sometimes these things get stale. And they lost a collection of quarterbacks that go by the name of Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, and I think just to expect the next guy is going to walk in there. And they also forgot to recruit premier offensive linemen. And when you're a new quarterback, that does not work very well.
What happened to LSU?
What happened to LSU is that Joe Burrow left, and so did about 6 or 7 other first-round picks. And just because you recruit 5 stars doesn't mean you develop them. Since Joe Burrow left his last game, Ed Orgeron is 8-8, and it's about to get worse because they have Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, and Ole Miss and A&M. And I'm not even sure they're going to have a winning season. And it as crazy as this may sound, Dan, not to you, you follow college football in the South. 2 years after before the 2-year anniversary of a national championship, Coach O could be out. And if you ask, has that ever happened before? Yes, it happened before. 2012, Gene Chizik fired. Who was his quarterback 2 years earlier? Cam Newton.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Paulie and I were that, you lose that quarterback, but you lose Burrow, you lose your quarterback's coach as well with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
And I was told that, Coach O is going to be out because unless he would somehow be able to land Arch Manning, that, the sweepstakes are pretty high with Alabama, Clemson, Texas might be the front runners for Arch Manning. But I don't know. I just can't imagine that Coach O is going to survive even after 2 years here.
I think Arch Manning's still in the 8th grade. I'm not sure. But I don't think he'll be around. They love this guy, and you probably have interviewed him before. He's hard not to like, but I think he's a very average football coach, and LSU needs something spectacular, and they do not have that right now.
Are you all in on the Big Ten?
I'm starting to watch a lot more Big Ten Network. It took me a long time to find it, Dan, but the Big Ten is the story of college football. I'm sure I'll get a pink slip today from the SEC Network for saying that, but hey, I'm sure they're not paying attention right now. And there are so many great stories, and I think the story that we buried 5 weeks ago may come back and be the Big Ten champion, and that's Ohio State. They are looking alive again, and I think the schedule suits them quite nicely.
Are you all in on Michigan? Your good buddy Jim Harbaugh.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just thinking, Dan, and I need some help here because you've handed out NBA trophies and NFL trophies, and I've never really had to deal with stuff like that. But if somehow Jim Harbaugh wins the national championship, I'm looking for a country to evacuate to. I just don't think it's going to be safe for the two of us to live in the great United States of America.
If you ran USC's football program or USC athletics, what would you do as your head coach?
I would hire James Franklin. I think he checks a lot of boxes in the sense that he's a very good CEO, which means he'll bring in a top flight staff, and from there, I think this program needs to be run like a big time operation, and it hasn't been. And I think some of the problem is that they've had inept athletic directors out there in the past. They don't anymore. They hired Mike Bohn from Cincinnati, and in LA. Dan, you have to be able to schmooze, and James Franklin is very smooth. And I expect that program to come back big, and I think he would be the best choice.
Every time I bring this up, because I had a source who told me that whenever they fired Clay, hey, James Franklin's tops on their list. And then the people at Penn State are mad at me because I bring up James Franklin. And I'm thinking, take it as a compliment. Like, your coach will be in demand. He's either going to get a new contract at Penn State or he'll get a contract at USC.
Can't believe college football fans get mad at commentators for speaking the truth. That's a new one. If I'm over at Penn State right now, I'd be searching the yellow pages for a new coach because I think Franklin is leaving.
Paul, always great to talk to you. Thank you, buddy.
Dan, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
That's Paul Finebaum, host of the Paul Finebaum Show on the Mothership, voice of the SEC.